Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to our first Women in Localization event here for the Silicon Valley chapter. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Um, can I get started? All right. Okay. So, agenda for today. We're a little bit late, but I wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to register in. Thanks for your patience. We're gonna get started with some introductions and updates around the women in localization in general and the Silicon Valley chapter. And then we have some amazing presentations from our guest speakers. And after the presentations, we will open it up for Q&A. At around, we hopefully are going to be done around 8. We would like to do a group picture, so please make sure you don't immediately leave. We would love to have a picture with everyone, everyone who participated today. Here you can see our Twitter account as well as our hashtag. Make sure to post it on your social media channels and let everybody know that you are at this amazing event. First off, I wanted to thank our event sponsors. Thank you so much, We Localize, for sponsoring our food today, and thanks to, well, WhatsApp and Women of WhatsApp for hosting the event here on the Facebook campus. And I also wanted to give a really, really big thank you to all of the volunteers from Women in Localization and the WhatsApp localization team for helping out with logistics, registering people, membership management, everything. Thank you so much for all your help on this. I would like to give a big round of applause to all of you as well for coming in. I know that it's not easy, so thank you, everyone. All right, so before we dive into our presentations around the role of data in localization, I wanted to talk a little bit about women in localization. So in case you don't know, Women in Localization is the leading professional organization for women in the localization industry, and we now have more than 5,000 members all around the world. It was founded in 2008 here in the Bay Area by Eva Klaudinova, Silvia Avery, who's here in the audience today, and Anna Schlegel. And as you can see, we have expanded a lot. We now have a lot of chapters all over the world, and it's just really exciting to see. Yes, yes, yeah, I agree. As you can see, we have chapters all over the world, so if you're traveling, make sure you're checking our website, womeninlocalization.com, so that you can take a look at upcoming events, and you can sign up for events organized by other chapters as well. Our mission at Women in Localization is to foster a global community for the advancement of women and the localization industry in general. I really recommend that you take a look at our website, womeninlocalization.com. You can get a lot of useful information on the activities that we organize, as well as a lot of volunteering opportunities that we have. Here you can see some of the programs and committees that we have, and we're always looking for volunteers to help out. I encourage everyone to take on a volunteering role if you're interested. It's a great opportunity to get to know other people in the industry, get to learn something new, get to develop and practice some skills. So reach out if you're interested. And I also wanted to just give you a brief overview of the 2019 board. So as you can see, Loy is our new president. We're very excited. You can see some familiar faces probably that you already know, including our co-founders. We also have some updates related to the Silicon Valley chapter. I would like to ask the leadership team to stand up so that everybody knows who they are. So Laura Ju, she's our associate chapter manager, focusing on our social media channels, our communication and engagement sessions. Give a big round of applause to Laura. And then we have Magdalena. She is our membership guru. She helps us with all of the membership management, getting people registered on NetApp, and getting everybody to receive their emails for our events. Big round of applause to Magdalena. And then Samantha, she is also an associate chapter manager. She has been helping us a lot with event organization, a lot of the logistics, organizing all the food and catering. Thank you so much, Samantha. And then Winnie, I'm sure a lot of you from the Monterey Institute know her. Big round of applause. She's helping us with our mentorship events, as well as being a liaison and a bridge between academia and the industry. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to the leadership team for helping with this event. Okay, so I think we can... Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't introduce myself. Sorry about that. My name is Chiara Fornasero, and I'm the new chapter manager for the Silicon Valley chapter. Thank you. Okay. Now I think I'm just going to introduce our amazing speakers tonight. They are going to talk about the role of data in localization and focus on different perspectives. So we have Vera Richards. She is the vice president at Akorbi, translation and localization. So she's going to bring in the perspective from the vendor side. And then we have Edith. Edith Bendermacher, she's a senior manager at NetApp, focusing on globalization and localization operations. She's going to provide us with a bit of a perspective from the client side. And then we have Cynthia and Hanna from the Monterey Institute. They're going to give us a bit of a flavor of an internship that they did and talk about skills related to data and localization that can be applied in other roles as well. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Vera to the podium. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you for having me. I'm here visiting from the Pacific Northwest Sister Chapter. So it's great to be here and see all of the professionals, professional women and some gentlemen from the localization side of our business. So before, let's just see if I can operate this. All right, so data and localization. I think that's a pretty loaded topic for all of us because data is all around us these days, and how we use it, how we analyze it, and how we make our business run based on the data is what makes us succeed these days in anything we do in localization. So data as a quantitative or qualitative values of a variable, it's the kind of full mouth for me to even say. But what it means, what this data is represented by is numbers, images, words, facts, percentages, figures, anything, blog entries, clicks. That's all data we are seeing today in our line of work. So how does that impact us on a daily basis? So first of all, data is something we can use on both sides of the partnership between the client and between us. You know, I'm coming from the side of a LSP. So how do we forge those partnerships with our clients in a way that we are transparent and we can stand behind what we are delivering. We, first of all, set up set of meaningful SLAs and KPIs with our clients, and we follow look at the data on regular basis to make sure that we are all adhering to what we set out to do in our business. We share reports with our client. We show our client our books, basically, with all the financial data to make sure that the volumes we receive is corresponding to the financial side of things. And then we want to show the savings, we want to show efficiencies. Again, that's very powerful data when we speak with our clients, to be able to show them that now we saved time, we saved money, we brought in these efficiencies, we are much more productive. So if we can collect that type of metrics and data and share it with our clients, it's very helpful to forge those partnerships and to show them that we are delivering on those SLAs and those KPIs. And we do that at QBRs, post-mortem, with our conversations our project managers are having with the client, as well as, you know, in more formal settings during those business meetings we sometimes have to have. How does data help clients improve their product? I've most recently, some of the projects our company works on are healthcare projects, and the data which our company collects is very helpful to those clients, because that industry works on demand. Basically, if members of healthcare or health insurance companies start requesting data in different languages, then they understand that maybe there is a concentration of population, new community or growing community needs to have localized documents or localized forms, or being in compliance with the larger communities. So we are being asked to give them that data to collect how many members are requesting certain language, so then they can provide bigger support to their members. So this type of mutual exchange of data helps both sides. You know, we see a growing need and growing business for certain languages, and our client then, on the other hand, also sees that they need to support a bigger group, or bigger, they have to support better a certain community, certain group. Then the other data which helps the client improve their product or what they deliver, their service, is seeing how much is their content viewed and reviewed. So many companies you here represent collect the number of clicks, the number of hits on their website. They see how much people come to the website, or how little they come to the website, and that drives their business decisions, whether they should localize for a certain market or not. So sometimes we can help with that as well, because our teams are all around the world. Our linguists are in their respective countries, and we take surveys oftentimes. Sometimes when we work for different clients, we take survey on how much their product is used in that country, and we pass that on as a feedback. So it's kind of from the trenches, if you might say. Then the user studies, which I believe are a great way to gauge how certain product performs in a certain market. There's a lot of English or US-centric products where, when they are now put in the markets around the world, they might not be received the same way, and it could be the way they're just prepared, or they're developed for the US market and not taken into consideration different cultural differences, or customization which could happen. Once we collect that type of data, then that improvement can happen. Then the client can customize and make sure that in that new market, that product will perform just as well. The data we use as LSPs to run our businesses more efficiently, beside the financials and the P&L, which we have to review and make sure that we are as efficient and run the business properly. There's vendor data we have and we collect. It's data on subject matter expertise our vendors have and how we best direct the content to the right vendors. So we have to have that set up in a way that the content can be then sent out to the right vendor, right supplier or partner. And we also monitor productivities, not just productivities of our vendors, but also internally, productivities of our project managers, of our coordinators, engineers, and so on. So that's all very, very important data. And there's ways to collect it. There's ways to display it, monitor it in life, on a life, I guess, in the real time is what I want to say. Quality data, I think all of us find quality data one of the pivotal data sets we all have to be mindful of and have to monitor and screen and collect to improve the quality, to work with our translators. We collect the data in the LQA scores, in scorecards, and then monitor how certain language improves, how certain vendors improve. We also monitor those which don't improve, and we have to then either part ways or see if they were maybe set in a wrong subject matter expertise. So that's a data which certainly is impacting the business all across. If we deliver data, if we deliver deliverables which don't have good quality, then we can lose the relationship with the client. So quality is taken very seriously, I believe, with all LSPs. And let's see, I think we'll just move on here. So the other part, we collected all this data. What do we do with it? How do we analyze it? What is the best, what is the most important data we want to collect, and how do we do that? So if we look at the file, let's say just the regular document we need to translate, we first, and this doesn't happen in all cases, but in the ideal scenario, we want to make sure that we do a thorough text analysis. What do we need to provide the end client with the best possible translation? So we analyze the file for linguistic issues, for global issues which impact all the languages, and we see if the text is annotated properly, if there are notes from developers, if there would be any ambiguities, like a part of speech missing or ambiguous part of speech could happen. Anything which we could annotate, and this is, again, ideal scenario where we have time to do the due diligence. But why we do it and what's important, when it's important to do this, it's at the beginning of the project, because we can then work with our clients to improve that source, because we give them that loop back and that feedback. So that's one of the analyses which is quite important. Then the quality of the metadata is the other I think I'm a little bit passionate about this, because I feel that more metadata we received, better not only better translation happens, but also better automation. And the future of the artificial intelligence is really, it is key to have that standard embedded in the files. So the quality of metadata is something I will touch on in a little while as well on the next slide. File analytics, everybody here, I'm sure, is used to this. Whenever LSP receives the files, the analytics are run on the side of the LSP, they're run on the side of the translators, then that data is correlated to see that everyone is on the same page. So those are the basic statistics and the daily tasks, which happens millions of times. And then checklists, which are created for the handback checks, making sure that all that data we need to collect once the files come back is put in a template so that can be checked off before we send the files back. And the various reports which we either receive from our linguists or we need to prepare for our clients with the deliveries or at the end of the month or at regular basis. So these are all analytics which are run on the actual files and the actual deliverables. The quality analytics, I think, I like this part of my job. Not that I do that now, but I still do actually, but I don't tell anyone. So looking at the scorecards and finding certain errors or global issues or trends across maybe all languages, it's almost kind of like finding a little piece of gold, because you can go back to the client and say, okay, this will affect all the languages. If we fix it now and don't send it out, we can save you money and us money and headache. So looking at those type of trends and identifying them is really important, and it makes the products better. But it also, on the side of the LSP, makes us separate the great translators from the marginal translators. It helps us grow or improve or help kind of work with our translator team and editing team. It also is a great connection for building communities around the language, because if you set up the right collaboration between the editors and the translators and have them share the data from the scorecards and discuss it, and that will improve the end result, what ends up with the users in the end. And then financial analytics, this is kind of a boring part of our business, but inevitable. So we need to collect the data on the volumes, on the spends. We need to make sure that that data is always correct, so we don't lose those partnerships with our clients. So analyzing and making sure that we have the right numbers to invoice with our suppliers as well as with the client. That's important. And what the LSPs want the most always is forecasts, because if there are forecast data, then we can build the team right, we can scale up or down, we can foresee what's coming in the future. So the forecast data points are very, very important for us to run our business the right way. And then we'll give the discounts and efficiencies. If we can scale up or scale down, we can absorb more work. If we can be faster, see the volume and find those efficiencies, we like to pass it on to our clients. So that's how that works together. So the data we receive from our clients, or rather the data we would like to see from our clients. So this is the annotation, the metadata I talked about before. I am a bit passionate about the international tagging system, the 2.0, which is XLIF 2.0, which is hopefully going to be the new standard. It includes a lot of the metadata, which helps our automation. It helps us direct the content in the right direction. What it includes is the translate annotation, which tells our clients are letting us know what is the localizable portion of the different file. We have notes, we have product details, so we can match better with those suppliers who have that expertise, the SMEs. Then we also find out the directionality, for example, locale filters, which can help customize for different content for different locale, and storage restrictions, which can prevent rendering issues. And the metadata, such as content type, context, tags, that's all very important. And I'm a true believer that if we get close to that standard, the artificial intelligence is going to perform that much better, because then the artificial intelligence can direct, that content can be directed in a proper way. This is a little example of the source data and what it can do with the translation. I don't know if there are any Slovak speakers here, but there is one. Very good. Very good. So, so the sentence "London Road, White Fang" is translated in Slovak as "London, the city, road, White Fang." So, if this data would be in, the translator could click and find that Jack London is a writer and that it's not the city. So this is a very simple example of that metadata playing the role. But of course, it happens with much more complex text most often, and then it can cause a problem for the client and for the end user, most of all. So the data we collect from our vendors, or the data we received from our vendors, could be the volume analysis, as I said, the word counts, and the CAT tools which they use, or which LSP uses, provides information on those volumes, on the processing, on the speed during that round trip. And in appropriate units, which we can then collect, we can analyze, and we can get all sorts of good information such as who worked on the file, things like how fast our suppliers are. We can, by timestamps, we can see how quickly they can work through the content. So the data we are collecting from that engagement is very valuable. And same way for the vendors, they are also using that data, because many times we not only work with individuals, we work with SLVs, we worked with agencies. So that data is being collected on their side. Also, data which vendors find in the files give them information on maybe embedded LQAs, for example. That's something which can be done as well, and they can look. For example, we can also see how often are suggestions from MT and TM, how that's used, and how often they take it, or they leave it, or they erase all of those suggestions. So that's important data. And estimate versus measure. I think all of us estimate based of our experience. We can estimate the volumes, we can estimate quantity, suitability, quality. We can estimate a forecast based on that client and what they have done historically. But then it's important to actually measure and compare those two values. Compare how well did we estimate and what was the fact, what was the factual measurement in the end. And what we can do with that, we can then improve. We can improve not only the process, but we can improve our next estimation. So, you know, that's the other part of data. And so data and artificial intelligence, I put a little joke in there, but arbitrary number of ifs. Artificial intelligence, as I said before, can only get better with more data, and the data, how we annotate it, how we collect it, and how we use it. So imagine a machine translation engine which can understand the topic because it has the domain tag, while it's observing the proper terminology because we loaded that all in, and leaving protected strings untranslated just like we intended. Then the annotations are not translated, only the text which is annotated as to be translated is translated. And then using the identified entities for additional context, understanding where it belongs within that product. And at the same time, the translated text would fit within the required dimensions because we had the storage restrictions in the file annotated already. So to me, artificial intelligence, it's now the popular word and it's used all over the place. And in translation, this is something we should really all be passionate about, to drive that standard, to help us automate, help us get to that perfect artificial intelligence. So I feel that that's where we're going, we're heading. Sharing the text data, I already talked about this. So XLIF 2.0 as an ideal vehicle, maybe that's today. Who knows what comes in a year or two, 3.0 or, you know, 10.0. But right now, that one seems to have a lot of good metadata, which would, I feel, help us improve. And then how do we share data? I'm jumping a little bit from file to the data I've been talking about, the business data, the business intelligence data. We can share that in dashboards. We can share it on BI platforms, in business meetings. I feel very strongly about more data we share, more dashboards we create and share with our clients, better relationships we have, because the clients have the right to look at what is going on under the hood of the translation company, and for them to also see even some of the pain points, the struggles, the slow speed, and why. So I am all for sharing the data across to be better at what we do and to help in the end improve the product, improve the experience for all the different cultures we are trying to serve. So I think that's what we should be doing. So this is my last slide. Basically, the business intelligence, it's once we have enough big data collected, we can do the proper analytics. We can compare and estimate and measure. And we can measure our performance. We can measure the performance of the different products and how they do in the different markets. And we can look for different payment models. What clients don't like to hear that, because we now have enough data. We can compare how does the word count payment model stack up against hiring translators and keeping them on a retainer, we can run those models because we have enough data to make that comparison and maybe do give different type of proposals to our clients. And then we can do the big data processing. We can run all those machines, all the artificial intelligence, automation, using the data we now collected. So thank you all, and I'm really glad to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Vera. This was really interesting. Thanks for providing us with a lot of insights into the journey of data from the LSP side. This was really interesting. Now I would like to introduce Edith, or ask her to come to the podium. All right.
Thank you. All right. So I'm very excited and also very nervous. So stay with me. First time to speak here at the Women in Localization event, so I'm very happy. And thanks for having me. Okay, so I will take a little bit different angle than Vera because we are an enterprise company. We of course do all of these things, and we look at all of these things that Vera has been speaking about. But I will talk a little bit what we do from the business side and how we look at metrics from the business side. Okay, so just a quick overview. I work for NetApp. NetApp provides hardware and software solutions. We are also in the business of data management. So if you look on our website, it's all over there. Obviously, all the data that is being accumulated, we have the hardware and software to compute it. You might not see our boxes or our systems in the store or at Best Buy. It's for big companies, for big enterprises. So for example, weather services work with us, and if there are any information needed in split seconds, a lot of that information that they are gathering and computing runs on NetApp systems. We are headquartered here in Silicon Valley, but we have offices in about 150 countries. We do not localize into 150 languages. We localize mainly into 15 languages, and we have a tiered model where we have few languages where we have a lot of localization happening, and then we have some others where we just provide some basic documentation, web pages, products. Okay, so I work for the Globalization Programs Strategy Office, short for GPSO. We have been at NetApp, we have been a centralized team since 10 years. So Anna Schlegel, she has been mentioned as the co-founder of Women in Localization, is my boss. So I work for Anna. And our organization is a center of excellence. So we do not only provide translation services, we also provide globalization strategy conversations with 13 departments across NetApp. We provide localization services, internationalization, we localize products, we localize pretty much everything that goes out from NetApp in those 15 languages. Okay, so today's topics is role of data in localization. And I wanted to, as I mentioned before, I wanted to look at this from a globalization point of view. So for us, there are two different things when we obviously look at data. We not only measure all the operational data, as Vera was already explaining in much detail, we also look at the business side, because a lot of our data that we gather is helping us to make business decisions. So here's just a quick explanation how we gather the data, how we call it. So those are our metrics. We have a lot of metrics. We gather pretty much everything that is out there. How much input, how much word count, how are we applying NMT to how many words. All of this we do, and we of course work with our vendors who have all the different KPIs, right? And all of that is being used to understand how is the customer satisfaction, how is our productivity, how is our quality. We look at internationalization, how many bugs do we have to, how many bugs are there, and what can we do about these bugs? So then there's another process where we automate processes to lower the amount of bugs so that the less bugs there are, the product can go faster to market, can be localized and then go faster to market. We do look at product ROI. At NetApp, we do not localize every product. So even though we are a global company and we have been in business for 25 years, and we have a big portfolio of products, only few products actually are being localized. So this topic is actually very good because we have to show the product ROI in order to convince many of the product managers to localize their products. Right, so part of the data that we are collecting and the metrics that we put together is really to make business decisions and also to convince other people within our company, right, to do the right investments. Of course, and then we do use the data in monthly business reviews. So when we meet with our vendors, obviously we have slides and decks with data, KPIs, and we do look at how can we make decision based on that, right? So if we have very little projects and we have very little word counts, do we need, for example, project managers? Or we have a lot of word counts, we have a lot of different projects, what are we doing about it? Does the vendor have to increase resources? Do we have to increase resources? And so on. Okay, so this is what I wanted to present really, right? So this is where I wanted to make the split between the operational metrics and then the business metrics that we need to be successful. And to do that, we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions. So some questions can be easily answered, and I think that might be on the operational side because as we know, we need certain things to be successful, but to make business decisions or be part of business conversations across our company, we need to go a little bit farther than just looking at how many words did we localize and how many projects have we processed. So to make a case for globalization, we use the metrics to have conversations with executives, to convince the executives that we need to do certain things in order for the company to be successful. So you can read the questions. I'm not going to necessarily read through them because you can see them there. But the conversation starts to be more about the experience. So what is the experience with NetApp? What are the customers doing with the localized product or with the localized content? And some of those questions are very hard to answer. Gathering that data is also not very easy. That data is not supplied to us. We have to go out and work with the analytics team or with different teams to provide this information to us. But we do ask these questions because we want to go beyond and just look at the operational part, but also get a more broader view of all the different data points that the company is providing. So, for example, localized content. So many times people come to us and they ask us, so why should we localize? Why should we have this website in this language? And you could think, why would a localization team have the answer? Because we provide the localization, we give it out to the marketing team, they post it over there, and then they have that data. But for us, that data is quite important. So we build a relationship with those teams, like with the marketing team or support side team, and we actually do want to see that data because that helps us not to only build a business case for next time around, but also helps us to see, do we need to make any changes? Is maybe the content is not necessarily good enough, maybe the translations have to be better, maybe the customers need a little bit more. So from that point of view, we are forging a lot of relationships with other departments who have the data, because we are not necessarily the owners, we are not the owners of the content, so we need the content owners to come back to us after the localization has been finished, after the content has been posted, used, and yeah, decisions have to be made if we want to continue or not. Another great question is always, what is the uptake of localized content? And then also, what is the ROI? So these questions, we also are not easily answered. That's where the relationships and the conversations with the different departments have to happen. That's part, I would say, relationship building is pretty much one of the most important things that I do every day. So localization operations and those metrics are really easy to find. We can work with the vendors, we get them at very quick pace, but the business-related conversations or the business-related metrics, those are quite difficult to get. Yes, what's the level of the satisfaction, or what is the customer really saying about the content? That's not a relationship that we have also with our customer experience department. We ask them to give us data on whatever the customer is bringing back to them. So we, as a globalization team, we cannot go out and talk to every customer partner, whoever is engaged with us. So we're getting a lot of those informations we get from them, and it can range between they liked it or they didn't like they didn't like it, or the translation was so-so, whatever that means, to very specific cases or specific examples where we can really see that that work has to be done, or we need some of those data points. No, I just stopped. So I'm getting all excited here. Okay, so as you can see, so for us, we do split between those metrics, or what is it really required to run a business and be able to answer questions to executives, and then where is it where it's really just operational and you just run, you just use the metrics to run your business. I think the question what we should do more and what we should be doing less kind of applies to both sides. So it applies to the business side because we are being asked all the time to see what can we stop, and all of that depends on the priorities of our companies. The goals for the companies keep adjusting to the environment. The storage industry is a difficult business to be in. So the company, as we are evolving and growing, our goals keep changing. And many times we are being asked, do we still need to do this? Do we need to still do that? So if it were for certain departments, they would say cut all localization. We don't need it. Well, not so fast, right? So if you have metrics or you have historical data, and you have this relationship with all these different departments, you can build your business case and bring it forward and say, no, we will not change this. We might have to make adjustments. And maybe we don't localize 20 web pages, but maybe we localize only 10, because that is what the market is really showing us. And then we adjust to that accordingly. Then I need my operational metrics, because then I have to see how many projects am I getting. Do I need all these project managers? Do I need to talk to my translation vendors, right, and make adjustments throughout the whole chain? Okay, and very briefly, only look at pretty much on a regular basis. This is an operational dashboard that I wanted to show. So Vera, I'm sure you will be recognizing a lot of the items you were mentioning. This is how we are trying to show our business, our operational business, so the localization operations part. So the metrics for the business, where we look at revenue, uptake of web pages, that data we don't show in that sense, right? So it's not on here. Here you can see what we are looking after when we conduct our localization business. So those are just examples, and I took out the actual numbers. So we, as I said before, we measure pretty much everything that is out there in the localization world. And we do get new requests. We have dashboards that are connected to this list. So this is just a quick summary of what is available. Behind that, once you click on the link, you will have a nice Tableau dashboard, or 3 dashboards, or 5 dashboards, depending on how much data is needed, and also what others will be doing with that data. Because a lot of those dashboards, we take that information, copy it into DAX, and then distribute across the company. So just a quick glance. So this is just one of our dashboards. Yep. Okay, and I think that was it. I leave it at that. And if anyone is standing, there are seats here to sit down.
Yeah, there's a few empty chairs here in the front row if anybody needs a chair. Thank you so much, Edith, for your presentation. This was really, really interesting, and thank you for your questions as well. I think we all recognize some questions that we're either asking ourselves or that we're realizing we should be asking ourselves. So thanks so much for sharing them. Okay, up next, I would like to ask Cynthia and Hanna to come over and talk about data-driven localization internships.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, just want to thank you to Women in Localization for this opportunity, and we want to thank Winnie and Chiara for inviting us and organizing everything. So thank you very much. So I'm Cynthia.
I'm Hanna.
And we're second-year graduate students in the Translation Localization Management program at MIS. And we wanted to share with everyone our experience working as localization project management interns, oh, that was long, at Facebook the past summer. And we wanted to just share with everyone of some of the transferable skills that we gained, as well as how data played a role throughout our internship.
Yeah, so first I'd like to give a general structure of the projects that we worked on over the summer. So we were each given a different main problem to focus on. We then researched more deeply like where the problem was coming from, how we could go about trying to fix it, and a big part of this was querying like translation project data and localization data. Once we did this, we created action plans and started to implement these solutions, and we ended up by sharing our findings with the internationalization team. And the projects were really focused more on creating long-term impact than on the day-to-day operational tasks. So first I'd like to talk about some of the data skills that we picked up over these experiences. So one of the big ones was just learning to write queries with SQL. So we had some familiarity with working with SQL before we started the projects, but we hadn't used the language in a localization context, so that was kind of new. But we found that being self-reliant to come up with localization metrics really allowed us to dig into problems that we wouldn't have had the time or the ability to do without it. So the skill turned out to be necessary in our projects, and we think that it would be helpful for anyone in the localization industry to familiarize themselves with working with SQL and relational databases, which you can do through various online courses, which is how we kind of got familiar with it at the start. Another big part of what we got practice with this summer was data visualization. Whether it be through Excel, Tableau, or some other program, we saw firsthand how important it is to be able to visualize your data well, so it's not just looking at numbers like in a chart. So we also saw that even if we had the right information, the way that the data was visualized could really affect whether we were able to successfully convey our points. Another big part of our projects was story and dashboard creation. So a data dashboard is an information management tool that allows you to visually track, analyze, and display KPIs, metrics, and key data points. So they're also really useful for monitoring the health and performance of various processes throughout the company and within localization. And they're really helpful for keeping an eye on certain areas, maybe some problem areas, and checking in with them efficiently and quickly. Data can help to tell a story by showing large trends and allowing you to drill down deeper into more focused areas. And dashboards can really be helpful in showing these different graphs and charts, and they're really helpful for securing stakeholder buy-in and generally evangelizing the importance of certain localization issues throughout the company. And finally, even though it's really helpful to keep track of a lot of translation and localization related data, we found that sometimes if there was too much data being displayed, it was distracting. So we found that it was really helpful to have your audience in mind when you're creating these visualizations and when you're coming up with these questions for how to query data. And yeah, now Cynthia is going to talk a little bit more about soft skills.
Yeah, so one of the skills that we sort of developed throughout our experiences was independent learning. A big part of our internship was self-learning, and we spent a lot of time practicing SQL and querying all the localization data on our own to just really understand firsthand what were the most relevant localization metrics available to us. And from there, we eventually learned how to use the data that we found as a tool to find other significant trends and anything that we wanted to magnify to see things more in detail. And from discovering any more of these trends or any extra areas that needed more attention, we ultimately discovered the actions that we needed to do to tackle the problems that we were working on. And so this leads to another skill that we developed, was to be able to connect data with implementation. We learned how to use localization data to support whether it's an action plan or a proposal or even idea. We learned how to connect data with action so that the findings that we made were not only informative, but they also had an impact. And using localization metrics really helped us learn how to structure projects in an impactful format. And then lastly, we really were able to develop an analytical mindset. So we learned how to approach problems through a rather tactical perspective, and we tried to understand the problems we were working on as much as possible. And we worked on giving meaning and bringing perspective to all the findings we made in the data. And ultimately, we figured out what the action plan was to be implemented to tackle the issues that we were all working on. So some of the key takeaways that we had, one is that we really believe that the localization industry is becoming more and more data-driven, and this applies to both the client side as well as the vendor side. It's apparent that it's becoming more and more important for localization project managers to be able to work with data and to use that to make informed decisions instead of just relying on assumptions. And we believe that as strong as any idea or proposal can be, it will always be even more stronger if you had facts or data or any numbers backing it up.
And we've also seen this shift toward a more data-driven localization industry within the changing curriculum at MIS. So recently, we and a lot of the students in this room were able to participate in the first data workshop that the TLM program at MIS offered. It was a class called Working with Data for Localization Project Management, and it was taught by Julian and Adam from Facebook's internationalization team. So through this class, we were able to look at some case studies, work with some sample sets of data, come up with visualizations, and present our findings. It's been really exciting to see this shift happening both within the industry and to see how it's affecting our curriculum at MIS, and we're excited to be a part of it. And lastly, we think that data gives us the substance to evangelize for the localization discipline. So Learning to work with SQL and databases and querying is really important, but the big takeaway is that we should be looking for ways to use data to make actionable business decisions. Our experiences have led us to think not only about the how in actually working with data, but why it is important.
Yes, and this is especially important on the client side because very often we will be working with teams and people in the company who probably don't know anything about localization, and they probably don't know what exactly the localization team does. And for them, it might not be any part of their work or the process, and contents will just be sent to them all translated and localized. And so it's kind of like a black box. They have no idea how everything is done. And so when it comes to working with people like them and educating these people about localization, it's really helpful to have any localization data or information to back up your arguments. And so it's not about just speaking louder. It's really about making informative arguments, and that's where data really comes in. Looking at this on a larger scale, just like a big picture, we believe it's really about how to contribute to the sustainability of the localization industry and how to help it thrive in the future. And so we believe that being more data-driven will play a really, really large role. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia and Hanna. This was really, really interesting. Thanks so much for providing us with these insights and sharing all the lessons that you've learned from your internships. I think we have all learned something from you tonight. So let me see now. I would like to open the floor for Q&A. I would like to invite our guest speakers to come over, and then you can all use this mic over here. So you can see here there's a mic. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. We've learned and heard a lot tonight. So please don't be shy. And yeah, we're going to take questions for about 10-15 minutes. I know you're not shy, so, oh, great, great.
Good evening. I have a question for Edith from NetApp. So I found the table that you shared for operational metrics very interesting, and I was wondering if, I don't know if we can go back to the slide, but there were some arrows for under the status column that had different colors, and I was wondering if those colors actually mean something, and if you could give us more details.
Oh my, okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so the arrows, of course, mean something, and the colors also indicate something. So I would have to look at the legend very briefly. I think I added the legend on top. So we indicate if there has been, because we look at this from month to month. So actually, no. Oh, no, it is. Arrow color status is compared to the goal. So everything that we do is connected to a goal, right? So we have goals for how many word counts we want to accomplish, how many languages we want to localize into, how many products we want to localize. And all of these things are connected to these higher, more overarching goals. And when we show this on a monthly basis to our VP and to Anna and other executives, we indicate if we are going with the goal and we will be reaching it, if we are higher, which is much better, or if we are going down. So if there is any indication, for example, on the reuse, right, localization reuse, and you can see the yellow arrow going down, it means that we have not reused as high. So we didn't go above 45%. And that can happen if it's new marketing content and we have new product, there's a lot of new word count, we don't leverage as much as we would when we localize technical documentation, which is many times we have this product already, we just do a lot of updates, so our leverage goes up. So, but this is a summary, this is a combined number, right? So then that month it was lower than 45%. So that's just one focus. And then red, I think it's TMS availability, for example. So that's our translation memory system. And that month it was 0.05. there was something not working on one day, and we indicated that there was some breakdown. It was red, but it's up, so we are expecting it to go up. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. And actually, I also have a question for Edith. Because you're using so much data in your work, do you actually use any tools or any software to analyze or visualize those data in your work? Like what Cynthia and Hanna were talking about, they were using SQL. I'm wondering what NetApp is using. Thanks.
So yes, we have different databases where the data is coming in and we pull from those sources. So we pull from different sources, it goes into a database, and then we use Tableau to visualize our data. So these days, that's probably the tool of choice for most of our dashboards. We do have some dashboards that we maybe still do manually because of where the data is coming from, but I would say pretty much almost everything comes through, is displayed through Tableau. And no advertisement for Tableau, but we're using it.
Hi, I also have a question for Edith. So in today's tech company settings, there's a lot of agile, fast growth going on, and I'm wondering if you have any tips for isolating the impact of localization from the rest of the company's efforts, product efforts, engineering efforts.
More. Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Could you elaborate a little bit more? I'm not sure how to.
Sure. So companies are always, looking at growth from different angles. For example, from marketing angles or discovery, like focusing on specific groups of people or just customizing what they offer to each user. And that can all impact growth, but if you're trying to measure just the localization impact among all those other efforts, do you have any tips for sort of focusing on just the localization impact so that you can push for changes or improvements?
Mm-hmm. So thank you for explaining. So because we are not localizing every product, we pretty much have to explain and justify all the time. So we look at the products that we have localized. We look at, and I didn't show these data points, but we look at the uptake of those products in those languages, and that we then use in conversations with different product teams. So at NetApp, it's not a given that a product will be localized when it goes out of the door. So we do this after. Not that it's the right thing to do. So if you guys plan to have your company and release a product, don't do it that way. It should be always already embedded right into your very first designing, planning, and all of that. So we are working on that as well. But for the current products that we have, we show the ROI from all the different data points that we get, and then we use that in conversations with executives. Not sure if that's explaining it.
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other question?
Hi, my name is. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Go for it. I'll ask. Go ahead. Go for it. I'll ask after.
Oh, okay. I think the U.S. right now is talking more and more about data protection, and I think California just passed its first data protection legislation. So I don't know how relevant it is to localization industry, but can you talk, this question is to all speakers, but can you comment on the potential effect it will have on either the process of localization or localization as a business?
So from the LSP perspective, yes, we are seeing that not only just here in the US, but also in Europe. So the data, the way how we store the data, how we encrypt the data and store it for a long term, what type of tooling we use, that's all being very much vetted and scrutinized by our customers. So we have to go through multiple security audits. We are, just now we have 2 ongoing with 2 different customers, because the customers get that question as well because of government, different government rules which have changed, laws and which have changed. So we have to go through this strenuous penetration testing of our systems. We get reports, if there are any findings, patches need to be made. It's quite sophisticated hacking, which is happening to see whether anyone can get to that data. For something, again, from the healthcare industry, anytime there is a PHI data, for example, which means the data which has to do with the patients' names or any kind of details, that needs to be very much safeguarded, and none of that data can be processed offshore. So it's impacting us from that perspective of having to have all of our suppliers onshore, also storing all of our data onshore on onshore servers. So yeah, good question.
So maybe on our side, we obviously look at that as well. So we work with vendors that are vetted. We do audits. So I get monthly reports from our vendors, how they secure our data, right? So obviously the conversation has happened a long time ago, and now we just monitor it from month to month to make sure that if there is any new person onboarded, that person is trained, knows to how to use our data, how to not distribute our data. So we have an ongoing process around that.
A follow-up question. Will that part of the cost rise be passed on, be endured by your company itself, or is it passed on to the products and service?
Yes. So one of the things, for example, the company I work for, Akorbi, we take that on our side. It's part of the relationship with our clients, to demonstrate that we do safeguard the data, that we provide that type of security for them. So we usually, and I don't know, maybe I should say usually, but oftentimes the LSP does take that on to make sure that they're compliant. We actually go one other step above, where we provide the training to all of our vendors. So from the compliance perspective, we have the training, which is quite costly if they had to take it on their own, and we every year make sure that they are all trained how to work with that data, with that kind of sensitive data. So
Thank you.
Hi. So my question is, I'm sorry guys, but it's again for Edith. I do have a question for the Facebook intern girls, but sorry, I don't remember the names. Edith, so you showed us the data from GPSO mostly here, but I'm assuming there's quite a lot of more other data. So you represent like a B2B kind of organization, and I wonder, in a B2B kind of organization, we all know what kind of B2C businesses collect, what kind of data they collect. How would you say your data for like consumer engagement and product, product efficiency, how would that be different, at least for your organization?
Well, it's different because the way we collect the data, right? So we don't collect this, our vendors don't collect this, we work with other teams that collect this. So they might also filter already some of the information and give us only percentages, or they only look at a certain language and just give us that information. So I think what we get is already filtered, and many times we do go back and we would like to see the raw data so that we can, look at the data, make some maybe different correlations or different get different understanding. But this is our data, so this is I know pretty much every number on here because I watch over this every month, right? All our team members know that. The other data I don't. I only get it on even on localized content, it's really hard to get data on how many people have looked at a localized document, depending on which platform it's posted. So if you have it on the website, it's quite easy because you have this, Adobe Analytics, right? It just runs. But then if you go to our internal portal where all our documents are stored for the people in the field, field marketing managers, salespeople, whoever wants to go there, it's only for NetApp people. You can download one document and you could send it to our whole company. So I wouldn't know how many people have used that document because of the different way it's being posted and then also distributed, right? So there are these differences. Who has the data? Where is the content or that information stored? And when it comes to us, we kind of have to, that's where the relationships come in again, right? We have to have these conversations with those teams. They have to understand what we are looking for, and then we kind of work a way to, get the data, look at the data, make the right conclusions, and use it then in our conversations.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I hope that answered.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering a little bit more like what kind of data would you say a B2B is more interested in, when measuring, your, not measuring performance, but informing your business decisions, like which product are you going to support? Like if I'm a B2C kind of business, I would be looking maybe at this kind of things. And when I'm selling software to other enterprises, I need to look at other things. So I was wondering what those other things are. But maybe that's not your expertise.
Not much, because so we localize the content, we do the product, and as I said, I only get certain data points that I can use for my conversation. So I am not, in the product management team. They probably have a lot of data, but they not necessarily.
Yeah, but I'm looking for what are they looking at? I always wonder what other teams, what they're
I could see it too.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I do have a question for Hanna and Cynthia. I really wonder, if you could elaborate at all, if you could give us an example of how you used SQL for localization metrics. And also another question is, I guess, I'm very interested in any pieces of information that you've learned during your time at Facebook. Like, was it anything that actually surprised you that you didn't expect, and it kind of went against your, hunches or better, predictions?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not allowed to.
Right.
We're not really able in the place to give details about what our projects were. But Shweta, who's in the audience here, she's one of our managers from the summer. She gave a talk going into a little bit at a Women in Loc event back in the fall about it. So you can also ask her questions too. She has more training on what she can say.
I wanted to answer your second question. It's not really like information that I didn't know, but more of that I didn't really, I wasn't aware of until I started working there. It was the working culture there is, this is about working culture. So it's a really bottom-up kind of a working culture, and what it is it really fosters people working together as teams and coming together. They have various working backgrounds, professional career backgrounds, but they all come in together for the goal of localizing products and contents for Facebook, and they just want to come up with the best ways to get everything localized. And so they get together, they come up with ideas, and they bring that up. It's more of a bottom-up kind of a working culture, which I sort of had in mind that would happen because this is a really, that's kind of a very fostering type of environment to work in. But I didn't really personally experience that until working there, so that was something that I learned.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Before we move to the other questions, I just want to give a little logistics announcement. Our shuttle service is going to run until 9 p.m. So the shuttle service that goes back to Building 41, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you all for your presentations. It was really interesting, informative. This is for Hanna and Cynthia. I don't know if you're able to comment on what kind of data you were looking at, what you were looking for in that data, and then how that then transferred into action items, and what sort of action items were you able to suggest? Thank you. I'll sit down.
Yeah, and again, sorry, we can't really go very specific into what exactly we did, but if you have an idea of what localization is relevant, or what is relevant for localization. That is pretty much everything that we looked at and focused on, so unfortunately. But if you do want to learn more, please talk to Shweta. She's one of our amazing intern managers that we worked with. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Okay. Hi, thank you so much for your presentations. Yeah, as you've all talked about, data is such a big thing and a big resource that we can definitely utilize to make smart decisions and all that. But depending on how you look at data, it can tell a completely different story, right? So, you know, a lot of researchers say red wine prevents heart diseases, but some other research might suggest different. Like, yeah, so my question would be, in the process of asking those questions and then looking at data and analyzing those data, what kind of measures do you take to sort of sanity check your assumptions and like how you're analyzing those data and drawing conclusions to, you know, come up with action items? Yeah.
For us, or who are you directing that?
For everyone?
Just, yeah, anybody who would like to comment on this.
Okay, so I think it's always important to see to understand the purpose of that data we're looking at. You know what it is. So, for example, if we're looking at data, quality data, what type of metrics, how those scorecards are set up. Are we looking at number of this type of error per 1,000 words, for example? Are we looking for data on how many defects, how many bugs, errors were found in software? So there always has to be something to measure against. There has to be a limitation, either up and down limitation, time limitations. Are we looking over 1 month? Are we looking over a quarter? So anytime those parameters are set, then that data can be more accurately measured. It's also how we measure against other data, the old data, or how we compare against the estimates, as I said, looking at the actuals versus assumptions. So I think this is a very broad question you asked, but you are definitely right. The data can be manipulated. And I am a big believer in having those live dashboards, because that cannot be manipulated. If that's set up correctly and you can go and anytime see that data, then you are minimizing that manipulation, I guess.
Well, I think I'm just going to go back to if the data is not coming from us, I need to validate it with whoever the data is coming from. So we, for example, have heard from the marketing team, and they said, we're going to cut everything down because nothing is working, no one is downloading your stuff. Well, we did look at the source. We started looking a little bit deeper, and we actually have been looking with someone from marketing at the data, and then we did revise that opinion, right? So it's not just getting it and taking it. You also need to question it, so it's okay to question, and then maybe use that resource or that team's, analyst or whomever, and really deep dive and also explain what is it that you are looking for, and and maybe the correlations that were not made correctly, maybe those can be, looked at again. So in that case, we actually have very different data points, and it looks like what we are seeing is actually the right thing. So because they're reading the data with their things in mind, they didn't see the differences or the nuances that we can see from the linguistic side or from the localization side. So again, it's really always a back and forth. I think just getting the data and saying this is how it is, right? People question us as well, so we need to be able to explain that, so that they maybe take our data, use it for their conversations.
Thank you. Thank you. Last question.
It's a lot of pressure. Hi, I have a question for Edith. So thank you for sharing that table of operational metrics that you gathered. One thing that really stood out to me was internationalization compliance. And I don't know how involved you were in communicating to different, you said you were communicating with different departments, discussing data and how relevant they were and what they were doing. And I was wondering, what, in your past experience, what types of data you found effective in communicating with engineers and developers when it comes to internationalization?
Okay. I will connect you with someone on my team who can answer a little bit more around the internationalization piece. So there, I think we have multiple things that we look after. So as I already mentioned, we still work with departments to even internationalize the products. Why? Because we are doing that, there is a lot of issues that we are seeing. So a lot of that is being captured. And a lot of these things, we then on our side look, how can we automate? How can we fix all these issues in the back? So I think in this metric, there are multiple things that we look after. So there are business metrics. So how many products are we internationalizing out of the whole product portfolio? And then also when we start the internationalization, we have the different levels of and then we look how many bugs were there. When you fix them, how many less bugs there are, and so on, right? So yeah, that's all what I can say. That's pretty much the high level that I know. On this one, ask me something else. Because we have a separate team that does all our product localization. So my colleague Surab could answer this to you in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions, and thank you so much to our speakers for answering those questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them to the speakers afterwards.
Can
Great.
I quickly say something about
yes.
the project?
Absolutely, yeah.
So seems like people are really curious about what our interns did last year. So one of the projects was to actually look at the automation system that we have that routes content to our translators and to see how we can make that system efficient. So that was one project. Another project was some languages were trailing, so really looking at the root cause of why they were trailing. And then perhaps there was, more resourcing that had to be done on the vendor side. So really drawing conclusions from the data that they looked at was one of their, goals. So everything we do at Facebook is connected to impact. So these were like really meaningful, impactful projects that we continue to use even today after our interns have left.
Great. Thank you, Shweta. And if you want to know more, you can also check her Lightning talk from August, I think, last year on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone. Big round of applause to our speakers. Okay. Yes. So before you all leave, we would like to do a group picture. And also let you know that our next event is going to be mentoring, May 21st. Stay tuned for the venue. I think we can do a group picture. And I don't know if, Laura, do you want to announce the winners of the networking bingo? Okay, so we're going to announce the 5 lucky winners of our icebreaker bingo. Okay. So first winner is Esther. We have some prizes, some Women in Localization t-shirts and buttons. Second winner is Fernanda. Yay! Third winner is Erendin. I think she might have already left. Olga. And Adriana. If you were named, please make sure to come to the podium. And we can collect everyone. Hi, everyone. If you can still hear me, if you could come here right at the front, we're going to take a group picture. Thank you, everyone. Picture time, everyone. Can everyone please come to the front? Our photographer, Tom, is going to take a picture for us. Or not. It looks like you're all really looking forward to more networking. So thank you, everyone, for coming. The shuttle service, as I mentioned, is going to keep going until 9 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time, May 21st.